Hi, everybody. My name's Tom Francis, Head of Personal Finance at Octopus Money, and welcome to the latest update video. And today, this is going to be all about some changes that are soon to be coming in the world of pensions and inheritance tax. And joining me today is the Oracle, Ian. Over to you, Ian, for a bit of an introduction.
Well, thank you, Tom. I think you flattered me there. My name's Ian Millward. I was a founder of a company called, one of the founders of a company called Candid Financial Advice, and we became part of Octopus last year. But basically, my role for a lot of years has been to try and help people make good decisions with their money.
Fantastic. And to get right into it, the meat of today's video, as I mentioned, is going to be all about the changes that are forecast to come in April 2027. And the headline really is that pensions are going to start to become part of that calculation for inheritance tax. And one of the knock-on effects of that are that potentially financial plans might need to change, or more people might end up paying inheritance tax than they otherwise would have been. Now, Ian, I would love for you to try and explain this to me in the simplest terms possible. Roughly, what are the changes that are coming in?
Yeah, well, so obviously inheritance tax is the tax your estate pays when you pass away. And, there are different allowances, but typically a husband and wife or civil partners would have a kind of an exemption of £1 million. And then over and above that, you pay tax at a rate of 40%. But currently, when you value the estate, it would be things like your house, any properties you've got, your savings, your investments, but your pension hasn't been part of that calculation. And from the 6th of April 2027, the pension is going to become part of that calculation. So potentially, this is a very big change for quite a lot of people.
And do you think that the knock-on impact will be that people are going to have to kind of replan and reforecast things?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, there's a couple of quotes. I think there's a special forces saying, nothing works without a plan. And, the other one I quite like is, when the facts change, I change what I'm going to do. And there have been people that, because of this rule, have deliberately not touched their pensions. If they've had other assets, they've left it. So it is a kind of game changer, really, in terms of financial planning for those people that are affected.
Yeah, exactly. And I remember from my days of sitting in front of customers, it kind of used to be the easiest or most straightforward piece of advice that the pension was going to be the last thing that you touch, run down ISAs, run down general investment accounts and cash. But I guess all of a sudden that it needs to change. Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, people's plans have been completely changed. But I think that's the importance of any plan. Is one of the things that people need to remember is things change all the time.
Yeah.
And it's often people in their 50s, 60s, they actually also start to think they're kind of nearer death than they are. And if we fixate on one thing in particular, it often means we're missing other things. So kind of flexibility is a key part. It's very easy to plan for what's in front of you at the time. But actually, the only rules that really matter are the rules that apply when you actually, pass away.
Yeah, and maybe an unfair question, Ian. So sorry to put you on the spot, but how many or kind of what percentage of customers do you think might be impacted by a change like this?
Yeah, well, I think quite a few. So the government have put out figures saying it's only about 1.5% of estates that are now going to be, moved in. So they, you've got this £1 million exemption, which of course is a really large sum of money. But actually, if you've worked diligently, paid off your mortgage, owned a home, saved into savings, saved into pensions, a lot of people who would class themselves as ordinary, in the nicest sense of that word, are affected by this. So it's a lot of people, anyone with kids, is really trying to work out what to do and how to deal with this.
Yeah, I totally agree. I was even kind of running through some numbers yesterday and thinking, if somebody's average property size is, say, I don't know, £300,000, £400,000, and then you add on some savings and maybe even receive an inheritance themselves as they get older.
Yeah. And the inheritance tax nil rate ban, this kind of exemption you get, it's been frozen since 2009-10. So in real terms, it's already worth half what it used to be, and it's being held until 2030. So what was a tax for the wealthy, again, £1 million sounds like an enormous sum, but a lot of people are in that category now through house ownership and just cost of living and the way things go. So it is really catching a lot of people in the trap.
Yeah, exactly. And looking at the kind of specifics of the change that's going to come in April 2027, broadly, will this impact pretty much all pensions, or are there any kind of big things that are standing out?
Well, pensions is quite a wide term. So you have defined benefit and defined contribution pensions, and it's defined contribution pensions that will be affected. So a defined benefit pension is typically, where you get an income for life based on your salary and your length of service. So it'd be things like teachers, people that work for local authorities, NHS, and private companies offered them as well, and they'll have a benefit for your partner when you pass away. But when you're both gone, that pension is ended. State pension is not part of this. Anyone who's bought an annuity, and I wouldn't worry if you don't know what that is. If you've bought one, you'll know about it. So if it doesn't mean anything to you, it doesn't affect you. None of that's affected. Mm-hmm. It's a defined contribution pension. And again, all that means is if you've got a pot of money that you've invested and you see the value going up and down, that's a defined contribution pension. And that's what's going to now fall into this new calculation.
Yeah, makes total sense. And one of the other side effects of this change that's coming in April 2027 that I've spotted is also there's a slight shift in kind of who is on the hook for the IHT payment with a pension when someone passes away. Because as I understand it, historically, if an IHT payment might have needed to have been paid, a pension administrator could kind of handle that side of things. It looks like that's switching now to somebody's beneficiaries.
Yeah. Well, when they first announced this consultation, that was the plan, was that the pension administrators could sort it. But, this now it's falling into the estate. It's actually going to fall under the executor. And, anyone that's ever been an executor will know that it's not a very pleasant or easy job. But the executors always had roles and responsibilities, so register the death, arrange the funeral, but also value the estate, settle any debts, settle any taxes, and distribute the estate. So actually, it's probably quite sensible and quite a natural progression that now this responsibility will also fall to the executor. And of course, lots of people as executors, they still get professional help with this. I think the bit that's most relevant for the executors to know is that they do have options. So the pension's now part of the estate and they may be taxed to pay on that, but you can choose to pay that from the rest of the estate if there's money that's available to do it. The beneficiary of the pension could choose to take the pension in full and they could choose to settle it independently if they wanted, or you can instruct the pension provider to pay their share of it. So there are options. That's the important thing. It's now their responsibility, but probably that's sensible. But they have choices and options about how they settle it.
Yeah, really good points. And I guess in many ways, some of the sneak peeks about some of the conversations that could be had in the coming months and years for people who are working with their advisor to try and get ahead of these things. Because I often make the mistake of defaulting into thinking, it's going to be me that's going to be needing to pay that IHT bill. But remember, those people who have parents or grandparents, these are the kind of things that need to be considered.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, lots of people do take professional help at the time. Again, if anyone that's been an executive will know it's not an easy job. It's important to understand the rules and know what's going on. But actually, sometimes, as long as you're not overpaying, it's one of those areas where you just need professional help and that someone's done it loads of times. But of course, with this, no one's done it yet.
Yeah.
And it's not even going to come in until April 27. There will always be things that haven't been thought of. Sometimes, people own properties in their pension which are not assets that can be easily realised. So there's going to be a lot of work to go on with this.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess final question from me. What would kind of your tips or advice be to people who are listening to this video and starting to appreciate the changes that will come in 2027?
Yeah, I think avoid a knee-jerk. Something was always going to happen. And so, it's happened. But when we react and fixate on what's immediately in front of us, we often miss other things. Mm-hmm. And again, as I said earlier, people in their 50s, 60s, even 70s often start to think they're nearer death than they think they are. So there's an awful lot of budgets and changes still to come. And yes, usually they're for the worse, but sometimes they're for the better. So doing nothing is often really sensible. Don't underestimate how much life changes for the rest of us. All those same things apply. You've got to save yourself first, make sure that you're going to be okay. So if there's a loss of a partner, have you got enough income factoring in, care home costs or just really long-term illness? In your children's lives will change dramatically over that time scale. So be really careful about painting yourself into a corner, just fixating on the rules that apply now. Take a breath, and I'd always say, do the simple, easy, obvious things to start with. So, we get an allowance each year where you can give away £3,000 and it's immediately outside of your estate. If you didn't do it in the previous year, you can do 2 years. So a couple, a husband and wife, civil partners, could potentially do £12,000.
Yeah.
So you could be potentially taking some tax-free cash off the pension, and as long as you know you're okay, you could gift that. Gifts out of income, and again, there are rules around that, so you've got to be careful how you do it, but gifts out of income are immediately outside of your estate. So you could be taking some income off the pension, within basic rate tax, within 20% tax, and you could be giving that away, and there's flexibility there because if life changes, you can stop it. So do the simple, do the easy, do the obvious, and then take your time, and then be kind of flexible, because again, 10, 20 years, everything will look different.
Understood. Thank you, Ian. So helpful. And thank you, everybody, for joining. The whole of Octopus Money are here on your side to help with questions like this. And if you're somebody who thinks their plans might need changing, ourselves and all the advisors are here to help. Thanks, Ian.
Thank you. Thanks, Tom. Bye-bye. Thank you.